She signed her name in black ink and sold the next 2 years of her life for a brother who was already dying. Lena Carter didn't cry when Adrian Voss slid the contract across that glass table in Manhattan. She cried later, alone, in a bathroom that cost more than her childhood home. He told her on their wedding night that she meant nothing, that she was a signature, a prop, a warm body in a cold arrangement. What he didn't know was that this quiet girl from Queens would be the one thing his billion-dollar empire couldn't buy, couldn't break, and couldn't survive without. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments so I can see how far Lena and Adrian's story has traveled tonight. The hospital smelled like bleach and bad coffee, and Lena Carter had been breathing it for 9 days straight. She sat in the hard plastic chair beside her brother's bed, her knees pulled up under her chin like she used to do when she was 7, and their mother was crying in the next room. Danny's face had gone the color of old paper. The machines around him beeped in a rhythm she had started to hear in her sleep, a mean little metronome counting down something she couldn't afford to name out loud. "You need to eat," the night nurse said, pausing in the doorway with a clipboard pressed against her chest. Her name was Marisol. She had 3 kids. Lena knew because you learn things when you live in a hospital. "I'm fine." "You said that yesterday." "I meant it yesterday." Marisol made a soft sound that wasn't quite a laugh. "Coffee machine on 3 is broken again. The one on 5 isn't, but it tastes like feet. Just so you know your options." Lena smiled because it was expected, and Marisol moved on, and the silence came back heavy as a coat. Danny was 23. He had been 23 for 6 months, and the doctors had used a lot of careful words to explain that he might not make 24. Words like aggressive and experimental, and unfortunately not covered. Their mother had died 4 years ago. Their father had left when Lena was 9 and Danny was 4, and the only thing he'd ever given them was a last name that sounded like it belonged to someone who owned things. They didn't own things. They owed them. The hospital bill, folded into quarters in Lena's coat pocket, was the exact shape of a coffin. $340,000 for the treatment alone. Another $200 for the transplant protocol Danny needed next month. Her job waiting tables at a diner on 34th paid her rent and sometimes her groceries. Her second job tutoring rich kids on the Upper East Side paid for Danny's medications. Neither of them paid for miracles. Her phone buzzed. She almost didn't look. But the number wasn't one she recognized, and some stupid animal part of her brain still believed that unknown numbers could be good news. "Miss Carter, a car will be waiting outside the main entrance at 9 p.m. Mr. Voss would like to speak with you." Lena read it 3 times. She had never met anyone named Ree. She had never met anyone named Voss either, not in person. She had only written his name in the margin of a notebook 3 weeks ago, when the hospital administrator had told her very gently that there was a private foundation that sometimes adjusts payment plans for exceptional cases, and that Lena's application had been flagged for review, and that Mr. Adrian Voss himself had taken an interest. She had Googled him that night, sitting on the edge of Danny's bed while he slept. Adrian Voss, 34, CEO of Voss Harding Industries. Net worth that made her eyes hurt. A jaw sharp enough to cut glass in every photograph. A wife in none of them, which was strange because men like that usually had a blonde woman on their arm in at least one fundraiser shot. The foundation had approved half her brother's bill the next morning. No explanation, no forms. And now a car. "Hey, Danny," she whispered, leaning close to her brother's ear. He didn't stir. His lashes looked too dark against his cheek, like someone had drawn them on. "I'm going to go figure something out, okay? I'll be back before you wake up. I promise." She didn't know yet that she was about to break that promise in every way that mattered. The car was black, long, and so clean it looked wet. A man in a gray suit opened the door for her without smiling. He didn't ask her name, he already knew it. Lena slid into the back seat and immediately felt wrong. Her coat had a coffee stain on the cuff. Her boots had salt lines from the January sidewalks. The leather under her hands was the color of expensive cream, and she kept her palms flat on her knees because touching anything else felt like it would leave a mark. Manhattan slid past the tinted window in streaks of gold and black. They didn't go toward any of the neighborhoods she knew. They went up, and then east, and then the driver turned into a private garage under a building she had walked past 100 times and never once looked up at. 27th floor, Ms. Carter. the driver said. He's expecting you. An elevator with no buttons. A hallway with no art. A door that opened before she could knock. The man on the other side wasn't Adrian Voss. He was shorter, Asian, maybe 40, with wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of calm that people develop when they have watched a lot of other people lose their minds. Ms. Carter, I'm Kenji Rahi. I handle Mr. Voss's personal matters. He stepped aside. Please. The apartment was the size of a church and about as warm. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out at the whole glittering grid of the city. There was a piano she was certain no one played. There was a painting on the far wall that she was equally certain was real and worth more than her brother's life. And there, at a glass table by the window, sat Adrian Voss. He didn't stand when she came in. He didn't smile. He was wearing a charcoal suit with the tie loosened exactly 1 inch, and he was watching her the way a lawyer watches a witness, and she understood, all at once, that she had walked into a negotiation she did not yet know the terms of. Miss Carter. His voice was lower than she had expected, rougher, like he hadn't used it in a while. Sit down, she sat. Would you like a drink? No. Water? No. His mouth moved very slightly. It wasn't a smile. Suit yourself. Kenji Ree set a folder on the table between them. It was thin. Lena stared at it and tried to make her hands stop shaking. Your brother's treatment, Adrian said, is going to cost approximately $840,000 over the next 14 months. That's a conservative estimate. The transplant alone carries a 30% chance of complications that could double the figure. My foundation has already covered a portion of the initial expense. I'm prepared to cover the rest. Lena's throat closed. Why? Because I need something from you. There it was. She had known, on some buried level, from the moment the text message arrived. You don't get a car at 9 o'clock at night for a charity review. What? Adrian Voss opened the folder and turned it toward her. The first page was a marriage contract. She laughed. It came out wrong, sharp and small, like something breaking. You're joking. I don't joke, Miss Carter. You want to marry me. I want you to appear to be married to me for a period of 24 months, after which we will quietly and amicably divorce. And you will receive a settlement sufficient to fund your brother's recovery, his education if he wants it, and your own future. There is a non-disclosure agreement attached. You will not discuss the nature of our arrangement with anyone. Not your brother, not your closest friend, not a therapist. Why do you need a wife? He looked at her for a long moment. Something passed behind his eyes that she couldn't read. That's not relevant to the contract. It's relevant to me. My grandfather's will, he said flatly, requires me to be married by my 35th birthday in order to retain controlling interest in Voss Harding Industries. I turn 35 in 6 weeks. If I am not married by then, my father inherits my shares. My father is a man I would not trust with a houseplant. So find someone else. I've tried. Try harder. Miss Carter. He leaned forward slightly. The city burned behind him. I need someone who will not fall in love with me. I need someone who understands that this is a transaction. I need someone who has a reason to keep her word and a reason to keep her mouth shut. You have both. She felt her face go hot. She felt her face go cold. She felt like she was sitting in a room with a very polite wolf. Why me? She said. Out of everyone in the city, why a waitress? Because you applied to my foundation with a letter I read 3 times. Because you are raising your brother alone. Because you are 26 years old and you look like someone who has never once in her life been allowed to choose the easy thing. I don't need a woman who wants to be a billionaire's wife. I need a woman who wants her brother to live. The quiet that followed was the loudest thing she had ever heard. I need to think, she said. You have until morning. That's not enough time. It's all the time there is. She stood up. Her legs were not entirely hers. I want to see my brother first, before I sign anything. I want to know he's still... He is. I checked before you arrived. Mr. Ree will have the car take you back to the hospital. Think about it there. If your answer is yes, he will return at 6 in the morning with the full contract. She got halfway to the door before she turned around. Mr. Voss? Yes. What do I get out of this that isn't money? He tilted his head just slightly, like the question surprised him. Your brother, he said. Alive. Isn't that what you came here for? She didn't answer. She walked out. In the elevator going down, she finally let herself cry, and she was so angry about it that she bit the inside of her cheek until it bled. Danny was awake when she got back to the hospital. He blinked at her slowly in the low light and tried to smile and mostly succeeded. "You look like hell, Lee." "Thanks. Where'd you go?" She sat on the edge of his bed and took his hand. It was cool and too light, like holding a bird. "I went to see about your bill." "Lena, it's handled." "Lena, it's handled, Danny. Don't worry about it. Don't ever worry about it. Just get better. That's your whole job now. You don't have to think about anything else, okay? That's it. That's the whole list." He looked at her the way he had been looking at her since their mother died, which was the way a little brother looks at a big sister when he has figured out that she is lying to him in order to save him, and he does not know how to say thank you. "What did you do?" he said quietly. "Nothing. Lena, I got a job, that's all. A good one. I have to travel some. I won't be around as much for a little while, but I'll call you every day, and you're going to be out of here in 4 weeks, and we're going to be fine." "What kind of job?" "Personal assistant." "To who?" "To someone rich enough to pay for this." He closed his eyes. A tear slid sideways into his hair. "Sorry," he whispered. "Don't." "I'm sorry, Lee." "Daniel Joseph Carter, if you apologize to me one more time, I swear to God I will unplug one of these machines, and I don't even know which ones are important." He laughed. It was a small, wet, broken laugh, but it was the best sound she had heard all week. She sat with him until he fell asleep again, and then she went into the bathroom down the hall, the one with the flickering light and the broken soap dispenser, and she sat on the floor with her back against the cold tile, and she cried until her ribs hurt. At 5:58 in the morning, she sent a single text message to Kenji Raha. "Yes." The contract was 43 pages long. She signed it in a conference room on the 82nd floor of a building she would later learn Adrian Voss owned outright. There were 2 attorneys. There was a notary. There was a woman in a navy suit whose only job seemed to be to slide pages forward and witness her initials. Adrian sat at the other end of the table. He did not look at her once. The terms were exactly what he had said, and several things he hadn't. She would move into his penthouse within 72 hours. She would attend public events when requested. She would appear in photographs and conversation to be in love with him. She would sleep in a guest suite on the east side of the apartment. She would not enter his private office without permission. She would not give interviews. She would not contact the press. She would not, under any circumstances, form an emotional attachment to Adrian Voss. That last one wasn't written down. It was in the way he looked past her when she walked in. The wedding was 4 days later in a judge's chambers downtown. She wore a cream dress Kenji had delivered to the hospital in a garment bag, with a note that said size 4, "Let me know if the hem needs adjusting, KR." There were no flowers. There were 2 witnesses, both of them strangers. The judge was a woman with kind eyes who did not ask the usual questions. Adrian said the words without looking at her. Lena said them looking straight at him because she was a lot of things. But she was not a coward, and if she was going to sell 2 years of her life, she was going to do it with her eyes open. He put a ring on her finger. It was heavy and cold and fit perfectly, which meant someone had measured her at some point without her knowing, and she didn't want to think about when. "You may kiss the bride," the judge said. Adrian hesitated. For 1 full second, he hesitated. Then he leaned down and pressed his mouth very briefly to the corner of hers. It wasn't a kiss. It was a check mark. It was a man signing the last page of a document. Lena smiled for the photographer, who was also apparently a stranger, and then she got into the black car again, and Adrian got into a different one, and that was her wedding. Bob. The penthouse at night was worse than it had been in the morning. Kenji had delivered her things earlier that day. 2 suitcases, a box of books, a framed photograph of her and Danny at Coney Island when she was 15 and he was 10. Her whole life fit in the corner of a closet the size of her old bedroom. She stood in the guest suite, which Adrian's housekeeper had called Mrs. Voss's room, with a straight face, and she stared at the enormous bed and the enormous windows and the enormous crushing quiet. and she understood that she had made a deal with a stranger, and she was going to have to live in his house now. She changed into pajamas. She washed her face. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her hands. A knock. Not loud. Not soft. Measured, the way everything about him was measured. "Come in," she said. And then, because it felt absurd, "It's your house." The door opened. Adrian Voss stood in the doorway in a black sweater and dark trousers, no tie, no jacket, his hair slightly less neat than it had been in the judge's chambers. He looked tired in a way she hadn't seen before. Not sleepy, tired, the other kind. "I won't come in," he said. "I wanted to be clear about something." "Okay, today was a transaction. That's all it was. That's all it's going to be. I don't want you to be confused about that." She felt something in her chest go very still. "I'm not confused," she said. "Good, because I've had people in my life who thought that a ring meant something. It doesn't, not this one. This ring is a tax strategy. You're not my wife, Ms. Carter. You're a signature. Do you understand?" She had been expecting this. She had been expecting some version of this. She had rehearsed an entire face in the bathroom mirror to wear when it came. The face did not hold. "I understand," she said, and her voice was steadier than she felt. "That you're a man who thinks cruelty is the same as honesty. It isn't." He blinked. It was the first time she had seen him do anything that wasn't planned. "Good night, Ms. Carter." "Good night, Mr. Voss." He closed the door. She sat in the dark for a long time. She did not cry. She had used up her crying in the hospital bathroom. She had a 2-year job now, and crying was not part of the scope of work. She got up. She walked to the window. She looked down at the city from a height she had never looked at it from before, and she made herself a promise, because she had always been a girl who kept her promises. "You don't get to break me. I don't care how much you paid for the lease. I live here now." She said it out loud, just to hear it. Then she got into the enormous bed, and she slept for 4 hours, and she dreamed about her mother. The first week was a study in architecture. Adrian Voss had designed his life to avoid contact, and Lena learned the blueprint fast. He left the penthouse at 5:45 every morning. She knew because the first morning she woke at 5:30 and went to the kitchen to make coffee and found him already there, dressed for work, standing at the window with a cup in his hand, not reading anything, not looking at his phone, just staring at the brightening sky like he was waiting for it to tell him something. He turned when he heard her. He nodded once. He said, "Good morning." "Good morning. Mrs. Alvarez will be here at 7. She's the housekeeper. She handles groceries. If you want something specific, write it on the list on the refrigerator." "Okay." "There's a driver available to you 24 hours a day. Kenji has his number. He's at your disposal." "Okay." "I'll be at the office until 10 tonight. I won't need dinner." "Okay." He paused. He looked at her for 1/2 second longer than the conversation required, and then he set his coffee cup down and walked out. She heard the front door close. She stood in the kitchen in her pajamas, alone in a room the size of a restaurant, and she thought, "This is going to be the longest 2 years of my life." She started a list on the back of an envelope. Things I will do to stay sane. 1. Visit Danny every day. 2. Keep reading. Keep writing. Do not stop being a person. 3. Do not fall in love with Adrian Voss. 4. Do not fall in love with Adrian Voss. 5. Do not fall in love with Adrian Voss. She laughed at the list. Then she put it in her nightstand drawer because it wasn't actually funny. Mrs. Alvarez was a short woman in her 60s with a face like a kind hawk and an accent that came and went depending on her mood. She arrived at 7 exactly, the way Adrian had said she would, and she looked at Lena with frank curiosity for about 3 seconds before deciding something internally and getting on with it. "You want eggs?" "I can make my own. Thank you, Mrs. Alvarez." "Rosa. Mrs. Alvarez was my mother-in-law. I didn't like her." "Rosa. You want eggs?" "Yes, please." Rosa made her eggs. Rosa watched her eat them. Rosa said, without looking up from the counter she was wiping, "He didn't tell me about you." "I'm sorry?" "Mr. Voss didn't tell me he was getting married. I found out from the news." "Oh. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Not your fault he's got the emotional range of a filing cabinet." Rosa turned around. Her eyes were very sharp and very kind at the same time. You need anything, you tell me. Groceries, medicine, laundry. You want somebody to yell at? I'll find you somebody. You hungry? You eat. This is your house now, too. Lena's eyes prickled. She looked down at her plate. Thank you, she said. Rosa went back to wiping. You got a nice face. Don't let him make it sad. Danny was stronger that week. Not well. Not close to well. But the new protocol was working, and he had color in his lips again, and when she visited him on the third day, he made a joke about her ring. Is it real? I think it's real, Danny. Can I bite it? Absolutely not. What's he like? He's, she said, and then she stopped, because what was he? That bad? He's fine. Lena. He's a businessman, Danny. He's busy. I barely see him. I'm basically just house-sitting a very expensive apartment. Danny watched her for a long time. He had their mother's eyes, which meant he could see through her, which meant she was in trouble. You'd tell me if he was mean to you. He's not mean to me. You'd tell me. I'd tell you. Because I'm not too sick to beat him up. You weigh 110 pounds, Danny. 112. Oh, sorry. 112. Yeah, he's definitely scared of you. Danny smiled. The smile did something to her. It reminded her why she was doing this, and it reminded her that she had not cried in 3 days, which was the longest stretch since their mother died. And maybe that was progress, or maybe she had just gone numb, and she couldn't tell anymore. He better be good to you, Danny said, contract or not. She looked up sharply. What did you say? Nothing. Danny closed his eyes, suddenly tired. I just meant, he better. You deserve good. She watched him until his breathing evened out. Then she sat very still and tried to convince herself that he hadn't known what he was saying. On the 9th day, she met Adrian's father. It was not a planned meeting. She had come home from the hospital in the late afternoon carrying a grocery bag of the instant ramen Danny liked, because the nurses said he could try soft food again by the weekend. She was laughing at something he had texted her, a photo of his lunch tray with a face drawn on the jello, and she was not paying attention when she stepped out of the elevator and into the foyer. There was a man in the foyer. He was tall. He was expensive. He had Adrian's eyes and none of Adrian's stillness. He was maybe 65, silver at the temples, and he looked at her like she was a stain on his shoe. You must be the girl, he said. Lena stopped. I'm sorry? The girl. He waved a hand. Arrangement. Her face went still. I'm Adrian's wife. Is there something I can help you with? I'm his father, Richard Voss, and I've been waiting 20 minutes for him to return my call, so I thought I'd let myself in. He didn't mention you were coming. He wouldn't, would he? Richard Voss looked her up and down, slowly. Not the way men sometimes looked at women. Worse than that. The way a man looks at a piece of furniture he did not order. Well, I'll say this much. You clean up better than I expected, considering. Considering what? Considering what you were a month ago. Her hand tightened on the grocery bag. The plastic crinkled. She could hear her own heart in her ears. Mr. Voss, she said, and she kept her voice very level, because she had waited tables in Queens for 5 years, and she had learned how to talk to men who thought they were better than her. I don't know what my husband has told you about me. I don't particularly care. I'm going to put these groceries away. You're welcome to wait for him in the living room, or you're welcome to leave. Either is fine. Richard Voss smiled. It was not a kind smile. Oh, he said, you're going to be a problem. The elevator dinged behind her. Adrian walked in. He took in the scene in one sweep. His father in the foyer, Lena holding a grocery bag, the air between them, and his whole face changed. Not in a big way. In a very small, very controlled way. Like a door closing. Dad. Adrian. What are you doing in my apartment? Visiting my daughter-in-law. She's lovely. You should have brought her to dinner. Get out. Excuse me? I said get out of my apartment. Richard Voss laughed. It was the same laugh Adrian almost had, except all the way out. And Lena realized with a small sick jolt that she was looking at what Adrian would become if he kept shutting himself in that office every night. It was like watching a ghost of a future she now had a contractual interest in preventing. I'll call you tomorrow, son. We have things to discuss. Mrs. Voss? He inclined his head. A pleasure, truly. He walked past her. He smelled like cologne, and something underneath the cologne that she did not want to name. The elevator swallowed him. The foyer was quiet. Adrian did not move. Are you all right? He said. He was not looking at her. I'm fine. What did he say to you? Nothing I haven't heard before. Lena. It was the first time he had said her name. Just that. Lena. She looked up. He was looking at her now. Fully. For the first time since the judge's chambers. And his eyes were not cold. His eyes were something else. Something she did not have a word for. And she did not like how it made her stomach move. I'm fine, she said again. I need to put these away. Let me. I've got it. Lena. Mr. Voss. He flinched, just a little, at the name. Adrian, he said, if you would. My father already makes me feel like a prop. I'd rather my wife didn't. She stared at him. Adrian, she said carefully, testing it. He nodded. Something in the foyer shifted. She did not know what it was. She did not know if she wanted to know what it was. She walked past him with the grocery bag, and she put the ramen away, and she did not look at him again until she heard the door of his private office close at the far end of the apartment. Then she stood at this kitchen island with her palms flat on the cold marble, and she closed her eyes, and she thought, very clearly, number 3 on the list. Remember, number 3 on the list. That night she couldn't sleep. She got up at 2 in the morning to get water. The apartment was dark except for a single lamp burning in the living room. Adrian was on the couch. He wasn't reading. He wasn't on his phone. He had a glass of something amber in his hand, and he was staring at nothing. And he looked, in that lamplight, not like a CEO or a husband or a stranger, but like a man who had been very tired for a very long time and had forgotten how to say so. She almost walked away. She didn't. Couldn't sleep, she said from the doorway. He didn't startle. He must have heard her come down the hall. No. Is it always like this? Like what? This quiet. He took a long time to answer. Yes. She stood in the doorway in her pajamas and her bare feet, and she thought about all the ways she could go back to her room and all the ways she could not. And then she did a thing she didn't plan. She walked in, and she sat down on the other end of the couch, not too close. And she pulled her knees up under her chin like she used to do when she was 7 and the world was too loud. He looked at her. You don't have to sit with me, he said. I know. Why are you... She thought about it. Because you look like someone who hasn't had anyone sit with him in a long time, she said. And I'm here anyway, that's all. He didn't answer. He didn't ask her to leave either. They sat in the lamplight for a while, not talking, not touching. Just 2 people on the opposite ends of a very large couch in a very quiet apartment in the middle of a very loud city. After maybe 15 minutes, he said, without looking at her, Your brother, how is he? Better. The doctors are cautiously optimistic. That's their favorite phrase, cautiously optimistic. I don't know what it means, but I'll take it. Good. Adrian? Thank you, for him. I know the contract says I'm not supposed to. I know I already signed the thing that says I won't, but he's my whole family, and he's going to live now, and that's because of you, and I'm going to say thank you one time and then I won't say it again. Is that okay? He was quiet for a long time. Yes, he said. That's okay. Okay. She stood up. Her legs were stiff. Good night, Adrian. Good night, Lena. She walked back down the hall. She got into bed. She lay on her back and looked up at a ceiling she did not yet feel she was allowed to call her own. In the living room, Adrian Voss sat for another hour in the lamplight, turning his glass in his hands, not drinking from it. He was thinking about a promise he had made to a woman 8 years ago, in a hospital room much smaller than the one Daniel Carter was currently occupying. And he was thinking about how he had kept that promise by becoming a man he did not like very much. And he was thinking about the girl from Queens who had just sat 5 feet away from him on his own couch and told him that cruelty was not the same as honesty. She was right. He was going to have a problem with that. He finished his drink. He turned off the lamp. He walked past her closed door without stopping, the way he had promised himself he would. And he went to bed in a room on the opposite side of the apartment, and he did not sleep either. Outside the windows, the city glittered on, indifferent, enormous, full of other people's stories. Inside, two strangers who had signed a contract 4 days ago lay awake in separate rooms, thinking for the first time about each other. Neither of them mentioned the couch the next morning. Lena came into the kitchen at 6:30, and Adrian was already there, already dressed, already holding coffee he wasn't drinking. He looked up when she came in, and for one small dangerous second she thought he was going to say something about it. And then Rosa walked in behind her with a grocery bag on each hip, complaining about the produce man on 72nd Street, and the moment passed. "I'll be home late again tonight," Adrian said, setting his cup down. "Don't wait up." "I wasn't planning to." "Good." He said it like she had won an argument, which was strange because she hadn't been trying to have one. He left. The front door closed. Rosa raised one eyebrow at her over a bag of oranges. "What?" Lena said. "Nothing." "Rosa." "Nothing. Mind my business. Eat your eggs." She ate her eggs. Rosa banged around the kitchen with the particular rhythm of a woman who had decided something and was not going to say what. Lena knew that rhythm. Her mother had had it. It was the sound of a woman watching a young person walk into a situation and deciding not to stop her, because sometimes the only way through is the way through. That afternoon, Kenji Ree appeared in the kitchen like a polite ghost, which Lena was beginning to understand was his signature entrance. He was carrying a tablet and a garment bag. "Miss Carter." "You can call me Lena." "Mrs. Voss." "That's worse, Kenji." He permitted himself, just barely, the suggestion of a smile. "There's an event on Saturday evening, the Hargrove Foundation annual gala. It's a significant appearance. Mr. Voss attends every year. This will be your first time with him in public as his wife. The photographers will be substantial." "Okay. I've taken the liberty of arranging 3 options." He laid the garment bag across the kitchen island like he was presenting evidence. "A stylist will be here at 4 on Saturday. Hair, makeup, jewelry has been delivered separately and is in the safe in the dressing room. The combination is in the folder on your nightstand. Mr. Voss will meet you in the foyer at 7:15 sharp." "I don't know any of these people." "You don't need to know them. You need to smile, stay within 3 feet of him, and remember the names of the 2 women I've flagged in this briefing." He tapped the tablet. "Priscilla Hargrove, who chairs the foundation. Eleanor Kim, who is an old family friend of the Vosses. Eleanor will try to rattle you. Don't let her." "How will she try to rattle me?" "She'll bring up his first engagement." Lena paused, the fork halfway to her mouth. His first engagement. Kenji looked at her for a long moment. Something in his face reorganized itself. "He hasn't told you." "He hasn't told me a lot of things, Kenji." Kenji set the tablet down very carefully. He was not a man who set things down carelessly. "That's not for me to say, Mrs. Voss. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have mentioned it. Please prepare for the gala. Eleanor Kim will make a comment. Smile through it. If it becomes uncomfortable, Mr. Voss will redirect the conversation. He's good at that." Kenji: "Yes." "Does he know I don't know?" Kenji closed the tablet. "He assumes you've Googled him," he said. "Most people have. Have a good afternoon, Mrs. Voss." He left. Lena sat at the kitchen island with a half-eaten sandwich and a garment bag next to her elbow. She had Googled Adrian Voss. She had read a dozen articles. None of them had mentioned a first engagement, which meant someone had worked very hard to make sure they didn't. She left the sandwich on the counter and walked barefoot down the long hallway toward the east wing of the apartment. She stopped outside the door of Adrian's private office. It was closed. It was always closed. It had been on the list of doors she was not allowed to open, item number 4 of the house rules Kenji had walked her through on day 1. She did not open it. She stood there for a long time, the way a person stands outside a room where someone has died. She did not know why it felt like that. She only knew that it did. Then she turned and walked back down the hall. The gala was in a ballroom on the Upper East Side that had probably once been a bank. Everything was marble. Everything was gold. The chandeliers looked like they had been stolen from a European palace and rehung by a nervous committee. Lena stood at the top of the steps in a deep green dress that Kenji's stylist had sworn would photograph like old money without trying, which Lena privately thought was the kind of sentence rich people said to each other at parties. Adrian was a step below her, his hand held out, not touching her, waiting. "You don't have to do that," she said quietly. "Do what?" Pretend to want to help me down the stairs. I'm not pretending, he said, and he didn't look at her when he said it, which was the only reason it didn't completely undo her. She put her hand in his. His palm was warm, dry. The way a man's hand is when he has been preparing for a thing for a long time. He guided her down the steps without meeting her eyes. At the bottom, he tucked her hand into the crook of his elbow, and he did not let go. Priscilla Hargrove, 2 o'clock, he murmured. She'll want to tell you about her horse. Her horse. Her horse. Nod. She'll move on. Okay? Eleanor Kim will be by the bar later. Stay close to me for that one. Kenji mentioned her. A small pause. What did Kenji say? That she would try to rattle me. Adrian. Lena. Is there anything I should know before she tries to? He looked at her then, really looked at her for the first time all evening. The green of the dress was doing something to her eyes. The chandeliers were doing something to the room. His jaw worked once. Yes, he said. But not here, psych. Okay. After. Okay, see, and Priscilla Hargrove was a 70-year-old woman with a face like a beautiful axe and a voice that had been trained by a century of cocktail parties. She told Lena about her horse. The horse was named Beaumont. Beaumont had won something. Lena nodded. Adrian's hand pressed very briefly at the small of her back and then released. They did this for an hour. Adrian introduced her. Men in tuxedos shook her hand. Women in sheaths kissed her on both cheeks and called her darling. A photographer asked for a picture and Adrian smiled at her, and for half a second she forgot that the smile was for the camera. And then she remembered, and her own smile came a beat too late, and she hated how much that half second had cost her. Eleanor Kim found them near the bar at 9. She was in her late 50s, elegant in the way of women who had never once in their lives been told no. She embraced Adrian like an aunt. She held Lena's hand in both of hers like an old friend. She was so warm that Lena almost let her guard down. And then Eleanor smiled, and the smile was slightly too wide, and Lena remembered that Kenji had used the word rattle. So, Eleanor said, you're the one. I'm sorry? The one who finally managed it. We were starting to wonder. You must be very persuasive, dear. I'm sorry. I don't know what you mean. Oh, Adrian is notoriously hard to lock down. I've known him since he was 12. After Charlotte, we all thought he'd sworn it off entirely. A man can only survive so much, you know. Lena did not move. She did not blink. She had waited tables. She had been a good waitress. Charlotte? His fiancée. Before. Oh, goodness. He hasn't talked about her with you. Eleanor's free hand went to her pearls, a gesture of delighted regret so well rehearsed it was almost art. Well, I'm sure he'll get to it. She was the loveliest girl. Just tragic, really, what happened. Adrian, darling, I was just telling your lovely wife. Eleanor! Adrian's voice was pleasant. It was also the voice of a man closing a door. I'd love for you to meet Hiroshi. He's just arrived. You two have been meaning to catch up for months. Oh, but Hiroshi is right over there. Eleanor Kim was redirected. Lena watched her go. The smile on her own face had not moved. She was proud of that, and also she wanted to sit down. Adrian. Not here. Adrian. I said not here, Lena. She turned and walked out of the ballroom. She didn't run. She didn't make a scene. She just walked, steadily, in her green dress and her stupid beautiful shoes, out of the ballroom and down the marble hall and into a corridor that smelled like lilies and cold stone. She found a door. She pushed it open. It led to a small private garden on a balcony overlooking the park. The city was a low electric hum beyond the hedges. She stood at the railing and pressed both hands flat against the cold stone and breathed. She heard the door open behind her. She didn't turn around. I had to hear it from an acquaintance of your family, she said. At a party. In front of photographers. I know. You said you wanted someone who would keep her word and keep her mouth shut. Fine. I will. But don't send me into rooms without a map. I'm not stupid, Adrian. I can handle anything if you tell me what it is. I can't handle being ambushed. I know. She turned. He was standing 4 feet away, his hands in the pockets of his tuxedo, his bow tie slightly crooked for the first time all night. He looked like a man who had just been punched somewhere that didn't show. Tell me about her, she said. Lena, tell me about her now, not the details. I don't need the details. Just tell me she existed. Tell me she was real. Tell me what I just walked into tonight. Her name was Charlotte Ames. Okay, we were engaged 8 years ago. She had been sick for a year before I knew. She didn't want to tell me. She thought I'd... He stopped. He started again. She thought I'd treat her differently. She was right. I would have. When I found out, we had 3 months. We got engaged anyway. She died 2 weeks before the wedding. Adrian, that's the whole thing. That's not the whole thing. That's all you need to know. No, she said. It isn't. The garden was very quiet. Somewhere in the ballroom, a string quartet was playing something that had probably been written for happier people. I made her a promise, he said. He was looking at the hedges. When she was dying, she asked me not to become the kind of man my father was. And I did. Exactly. The first thing I did after she was gone was take the job at Voss Harding. The second thing I did was stop sleeping. The third thing I did was build a life that could not be interrupted by another human being. And then your grandfather's will made you get married. Yes. And you needed someone who would not love you. Yes. Because I already broke one promise. Lena looked at him. She was very angry. She was also something else she did not want to examine too closely, because the something else was a kind of pity, and pity was dangerous, and pity was what number 3 on the list existed to prevent. Adrian Voss, she said, you're an idiot. He blinked. I'm sorry? I said you're an idiot. She didn't ask you to stop being a person. She asked you not to become your father. There's a difference. You built a whole cathedral on a sentence, and you didn't even read it right. You don't know what she... You're right, I don't. I'll never meet her. I'm sorry I never will. She sounds like someone worth knowing. But I've been in a hospital room with someone who might be dying, Adrian. I've been in that chair. People say things at the end. They mean them, but they're not contracts. They're the last 43 pages. 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 They're the not 43 pages. They're the last thing a person thinks to say because they love you and they're scared of what you'll do when they're gone. You don't owe Charlotte 8 years of not sleeping. You owe her a life. That's a different thing. He stared at her. She had not meant to say any of that. She was supposed to smile and nod and get back in the car. I'm sorry, she said more quietly. That wasn't fair of me. I don't know her. I shouldn't have... No, he said. Don't. Adrian, don't take it back, please. She closed her mouth. He was looking at her like she was a door he hadn't known was in the wall. The garden lights caught the edge of his jaw. His bow tie was still crooked. I didn't know she was part of the briefing, he said. I'm sorry. I should have told you. I should have told Kenji to tell you. It's been a long time since anyone asked. Okay. We should go back in. Okay? They stood for a minute longer, neither of them moving. Then he reached out and, without saying anything, he straightened his own tie using the reflection in a dark window pane because she had not offered to do it and he had not been about to ask. She walked back into the ballroom 5 feet behind him, and when they walked down the steps together at the end of the night with photographers flashing, her hand was in his arm again, and she squeezed it once on the way to the car. And he did not squeeze back, but he did not pull away either. And for a week afterwards, she thought about that particular not pulling away more than she wanted to admit. The white roses started the next Tuesday. The first one was on the kitchen island when she came in from visiting Danny. A single stem in a small glass vase, no note. She stared at it. She asked Rosa. Came by messenger, Rosa said, not looking up from the stove. For Mrs. Voss. From who? Didn't say. Rosa. Didn't say, Lena. The second one was 3 days later on her bedside table when she came back from the shower. The third was on the desk in the little library she had started to read in, the one with the window that looked east over the river. The fourth was in the foyer on a Thursday when she walked in from the cold, wet, and tired. And it undid her a little, that one, because she had been bracing against the weather and she was not prepared to be met by a flower. She didn't ask him. She could have. She passed him in the kitchen most mornings. She could have said, casually, thank you for the roses, and he would have said something and she would have known. But something in her didn't want to know. Something in her liked that they kept arriving without a signature. They felt less dangerous that way. If she didn't know, she didn't have to feel anything about it. That was what she told herself. She was lying to herself. She was aware she was lying. Danny got discharged in the middle of February. He wasn't well. He was just well enough. The transplant had gone through 2 weeks before, and the doctors were doing their cautious optimism routine, which Lena had now come to understand meant they were cautiously optimistic because the alternative was telling a 23-year-old he might still die, and they did not like that conversation. Danny came home with a list of medications as long as her arm, a schedule Lena taped to the inside of her closet door, and a thinness in his face that made her look away sometimes. He was not moving into Adrian's penthouse. That had been one of her hard lines in the negotiation, one of the few places she had dug in. Adrian had arranged an apartment in a building in Murray Hill. It was small and clean and fully paid for. A nurse came twice a day. Lena went every afternoon. Danny grumbled about it, told her she was going to get him sick of her face, and then held her hand too long when she left. She didn't tell Danny about the roses. She didn't tell him about the garden at the gala. She didn't tell him that Adrian Voss had started looking up when she walked into rooms. It was a small thing. She thought she was imagining it the first time. She came home from the hospital on a Wednesday and walked into the kitchen for water, and he was at the island with a laptop and a spread of papers, and he lifted his head the instant she came in, and his eyes found her face before he said a single word. Then he went back to his papers. It was 3 seconds. It was nothing. It happened again on Friday. It happened again on Saturday morning when she came in from the gym in the building downstairs, her hair wet, her face bare, and he looked up from the newspaper he did not really need to read anymore. And his eyes held on her for a fraction longer than a man reading a newspaper was supposed to hold on his wife of convenience. And then he went back to the newspaper, and she went to her room, and she stood in front of the mirror with her heart doing something stupid. She said it out loud. "Number 3, she said. Number 3 on the list." Her face in the mirror did not look convinced. They had their first real conversation on a Tuesday in late February, and she didn't plan for it, and she didn't think he did either, and that was the problem. She couldn't sleep. Again. She was getting used to not sleeping. She went down to the kitchen at 1 in the morning to make tea, and he was on the couch in the living room, and the lamp was on, and he had a laptop open, but he wasn't looking at it. He was looking at the window. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Couch again. Couch again. "Tea?" He looked at her over the back of the couch. "Please." She made tea. She brought him a cup. She sat on the opposite end of the couch, same as the first time, knees up under her chin, and they drank tea in the lamplight. "My brother's home," she said. "I know. Kenji told me." "He's okay." "Good. Adrian?" "Are you the one sending the roses?" He did not answer for a long time. He took a sip of his tea. He set the cup down on the low table. He didn't look at her. "Does it matter who is?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because if it's you, I need to know what it means." "Does it have to mean something?" "In my experience," she said, "flowers always mean something, even when people say they don't, especially when people say they don't." He was quiet. "They were her favorite," he said finally. "Charlotte's. White roses. I haven't sent them to anyone in 8 years. I haven't had a reason to. And then after the gala, I don't know. I wanted to. I didn't mean for it to be a thing. I told Kenji to just have them sent. It was not supposed to be a message." "Okay." "It wasn't an apology, exactly." "Okay." "I don't know what it was, Lena." She held her tea. The steam was rising, the lamp was low. She could hear the refrigerator cycling in the kitchen. "Don't send them any more," she said, very gently. He looked at her. "They're her flower, Adrian. They're not mine. If you want to send me flowers, send me something that's mine. Don't put me in her dress." He was quiet for a long time. "I'm sorry," he said. "Don't be sorry, just think about it." "Okay?" "Okay." She set her tea down. She stood up. She went back to bed. She heard him sit on the couch for another hour before his footsteps passed her door. She did not open her eyes. She did not let herself. The next Tuesday, a single yellow tulip arrived on her bedside table. No vase, just a tulip, laid across the pillow like a feather. She picked it up. She held it to her face. It had almost no smell. It was a stupid flower, a plain flower, a flower that meant nothing. She put it in a glass of water on her nightstand, and she kept it there until it died a week and a half later, and then she pressed it between the pages of a book. She didn't tell anyone. Not Danny, not Rosa, not even herself, really. She just did it, and she closed the book, and she put the book back on the shelf. He came home early on a Thursday in the first week of March, which had not happened once in the month she had lived there. She was in the library, curled in the window seat with a novel in her lap, not reading it. It was raining. The windows were streaked. She heard the front door. She heard his footsteps, which she now knew by sound, and she heard them stop in the hallway outside the library door, which had never happened. He knocked. "Come in." He opened the door. He was still in his coat. His hair was wet. He looked, for a man who had just walked in from the rain, like he did not quite know where he was. "Rosa said you were in here." "I am." "What are you reading?" She held up the book. He squinted at the cover. He half smiled. It was a small, real smile. It was not his photograph smile. "Is it good?" "I've read it 4 times. I think that means yes." "May I sit?" She moved her feet off the window seat. He sat. He did not take off his coat. He looked out the window for a minute, and then he said, without looking at her, "I'm going to San Francisco tomorrow for 3 days, board meeting." "Okay. I wanted to tell you in person. I realized I haven't been informing you of things." "Thank you. I also wanted to ask." He stopped. He rubbed his hand along his jaw. His jaw was rough. He hadn't shaved since that morning. "There's a dinner on Saturday, in the city, small, 8 people. It's not a work thing. It's an old friend of mine. He has a birthday every year. I always go. You don't have to come. It's not on the schedule. I know you don't like the big events. I just thought, if you wanted." Lena looked at him. She had not been invited to anything that wasn't on a schedule since she had signed the contract. "Who's your old friend?" "His name is Marcus. He's a doctor. We went to college together. He's nothing like the people at the gala. I promise." "Is his wife nice?" "His husband is nice. His name is Theo. He'll like you." "How do you know?" "Because he likes people who aren't impressed with me." He glanced at her. "You qualify." She laughed. It surprised her. She hadn't laughed in front of him before. "Okay." "Okay, you'll come?" "Okay, I'll come." "Okay." He got up. He walked to the door. He paused. "Lena." "Yeah." "Thank you for the other night, the tea." It was tea, Adrian. I know. He closed the door. She sat in the window seat with a novel she was not reading, and the rain hit the glass in long, slow streaks, and she thought about a yellow tulip pressed between the pages of a book 3 rooms away. And she thought, very clearly, "You are in trouble, Lena Carter." And then she thought, "You have been in trouble for weeks." Danny called her the next morning. He was having a good day. He wanted to know when she was coming. "This afternoon," she said. "Good. Lee." "Yeah." "You sound different." "Different how?" "I don't know. Lighter." She sat on the edge of her too-big bed in her too-big room, and she looked at a yellow tulip in a glass of water on her nightstand. "I'm fine, Danny." "I didn't say you weren't." "I'm fine." "Okay. I gotta go. I'll see you at 4. She hung up. She sat there. She looked at the tulip. Number 3 on the list was already a joke. She had known it was a joke for weeks. She was pretending it wasn't because pretending was safer. But the yellow tulip did not care about her pretending, and neither did the quiet way Adrian Voss had started looking up when she entered rooms, and neither did the fact that she had dressed, twice in the last 3 days, thinking about what he might think when he saw her. She got up. She took the tulip off the nightstand. She put it back. Then she walked out of the room and she did what she had been doing every day for 6 weeks. She got dressed. She went to the hospital to see her brother. She came back. She ate dinner with Rosa in the kitchen, standing up. She did not visit Adrian's study. She did not look for him when she heard the elevator ping. But that night, when she passed his closed study door on the way to her room, she stopped for the first time. She pressed her hand flat against the wood. Just for a second, she could hear the low murmur of a conference call on the other side. She could hear his voice, speaking to someone in Singapore about a deal she did not understand. She took her hand away. She went to bed. She did not sleep. In the other wing of the apartment, Adrian Voss ended his call, closed his laptop, and sat in his chair in the dark for a long time. On his desk was a framed photograph he had not taken out in 8 years. A young woman with a dark bob and a laughing mouth, photographed on a beach on Cape Cod. Charlotte. He had been looking at it when his call came in. He had put it face down on the desk before he answered. Now, in the dark, he turned it back up. "I don't know what I'm doing," he said to the photograph quietly, like a person confessing. Charlotte, of course, did not answer. He stood up. He put the photograph away, in the drawer where it had lived for most of the last decade. He closed the drawer. He walked out of his study and down the long hall, and he paused for half a breath outside the closed door of the guest room, and then he kept walking, because he had told her on her wedding night that she was a signature, and he was a man who had kept worse promises to worse people than Lena Carter. He went to his own room. He lay in his own bed. He did not sleep either. Outside, the rain kept on, and somewhere in the dark between them, a yellow tulip stood in a glass of water on a stranger's nightstand, and it meant, whatever they pretended, a great deal more than nothing. The rain was still coming down Saturday evening, a thin, cold rain that made the streets gleam like black mirrors, and Lena stood in the foyer in a dark red dress Rosa had pressed for her that afternoon, waiting for a man who was, for the first time, 10 minutes late. She did not admit to herself that she was waiting. She stood at the window with her arms folded and watched the headlights move along the street 27 floors below, and she told herself she was just looking at the rain, but she checked her reflection in the dark glass twice before she heard the elevator, and that told her everything. Adrian came in fast. His coat was damp across the shoulders. His hair was pushed back with one hand, the way men push their hair back when a meeting has gone long, and he saw her, and he stopped, and he said, "I'm sorry, the car got stuck on 59th. "It's fine. You look—" He did not finish the sentence. "I look what?" she said, and she didn't mean to say it. It came out of her mouth before she remembered what it was going to sound like. He looked at her for a second longer than the foyer required. "You look like you're going to ruin my friend's dinner for me," he said quietly. "Because Theo is going to like you more than he likes me." She laughed. It was a small laugh, but it was real, and it hung between them in the foyer for a second, and she saw his shoulders drop a half inch, and she understood with a clarity that alarmed her that she had just made this man's day easier by laughing at his joke. She also understood that she had wanted to. "Let me get your coat," he said. "I've got it." "Let me get your coat, Lena." She let him get her coat. In the elevator down, standing beside him in a red dress with his hand almost but not quite at her back, she thought, "Okay, yes, You are in trouble, and you are going to be in trouble, and you have a whole dinner to get through before you can decide whether to do anything about it. Marcus and Theo lived in a townhouse in the West Village with a green door and a brass knocker shaped like a fox. Theo answered the door in a cardigan, a glass of red wine in his hand, and he looked at Adrian and then looked at Lena and said, with the voice of a man delivering a verdict on something he'd been curious about for a while, "Oh, you're real. Theo, I was told you were a rumor, darling, a legal fiction, a tax arrangement, and yet—" "Theo, come in before I embarrass you further." Theo stood aside. "Marcus, the Vosses are here. Put on a shirt." "I'm wearing a shirt," a voice called from the kitchen. "A different shirt, honey. You've been in that one since noon." It was the first home Lena had been inside in 6 weeks that felt like a home. There were books on every surface. There was a dog, some kind of scruffy gray thing that came to investigate her shoes, and then leaned its whole body against her shin. There was the smell of garlic and something roasting, and someone was playing a record in the next room, a scratchy old thing Lena's mother had loved, and she felt her chest do a dangerous soft thing and had to look at the ceiling for a second. "Come here," Theo said, and he took her coat, and he took her arm, and he walked her away from Adrian without apologizing for it. "Tell me everything. I don't believe a word of what he's told Marcus, and I want to hear it from you. How did you meet? Be honest. I love a scandal." "It wasn't a scandal." "Oh no, sweetheart, no. Everything about you two is a scandal. You walked in here in that dress. Give me a scandal." She looked across the room. Adrian was being embraced by a tall, curly-haired man in a sweater with a hole in the elbow. Adrian's whole face was different. She had not seen that face before. It was the face of someone with a history that was not made of boardrooms. Marcus was hugging him too long. Adrian was letting him. She had to look away. "He helped my brother," she said quietly. "That's the honest answer. My brother was sick. He helped." Theo's grip on her arm changed. It was still light. It was kinder. "Oh, honey. He's better now, Danny. My brother, he's better." "Good. And that's why, that's part of why. Part of why." "Theo." "Understood. Understood. I'll stop. I'll stop for now. Come eat. Come sit by me. I need someone to agree with me about the Pinot. Marcus has no palate. He's a surgeon. He thinks everything tastes like iron." The dinner was 6 people. Marcus and Theo. A woman named Ingrid who was some kind of professor and who laughed like a door slamming. A man named Sam who was Theo's oldest friend and who had brought a strawberry tart in a cardboard box and apologized for it 4 separate times. And Adrian and Lena, across from each other at the round table, and Theo on her left, steering the conversation like a pilot. Marcus toasted his own birthday badly. He told a long story about Adrian in their second year of college, about a stolen traffic cone and a dean's lawn. Adrian sat with his elbow on the table, his face in his hand, laughing quietly, and Lena watched him laugh. And she watched a version of him she had never been introduced to, and she thought about the man who had stood in the doorway of her bedroom 6 weeks ago and told her that she was a signature. He caught her looking at him. He held her eyes. He did not look away. "What?" he said across the table. "Nothing. You're smiling." "I'm not." "Lena." "Eat your steak, Mr. Voss." Theo beside her did not say anything, but he took a long, slow sip of his wine, and Lena saw his eyes move between them, and she knew he had just written something in a ledger she would not be allowed to read. It was on the walk from the townhouse to the car at the end of the night, in the soft, wet cold, that Adrian said, half to himself, "I forgot what it was like." What it was like. To sit at a table with people who knew me before. Before what? He didn't answer. The driver opened the door for her. She got in. Adrian got in on the other side. The door closed. The city slid by. "Before Charlotte," he said finally. "Before all of it." "Oh, Marcus has been asking me to come to his birthday for 8 years. I come every year, but I always go alone, and I always leave early. This is the first year I stayed for dessert. Marcus's strawberry tart was terrible." "Yes." "Sam apologized for it 4 times. "Yes." "Theo told me you were a rumor." "That sounds like Theo." "He told me a legal fiction." "Also sounds like Theo." She looked at him. He was looking straight ahead. The streetlights went across his face in pulses. Adrian, Lena, thank you for tonight. You don't have to thank me. I do, though. No, you don't. The car turned onto park. She put her head back against the headrest. He did not look at her. She did not look at him. The space between them in the back seat felt, for the first time, like something with a weight. She thought very calmly, I am going to do something I'm not supposed to do. Not tonight, but soon. The thought did not scare her as much as she had expected it to. The next morning she woke up at 8, which was late for her, and the apartment was quiet in a way that felt different. She went into the kitchen in sweatpants and a t-shirt, and Rosa was at the island peeling apples, and Rosa took one look at her and said, What? Nothing. Rosa. Nothing, mi amor. Rosa. Dinner was good? Dinner was fine. Rosa. I said nothing. Rosa flicked a curl of apple peel into the bowl. Coffee's on the counter. Mr. Voss already left. He said to tell you he'll be back late. Okay. He left something for you. What? Rosa inclined her head toward the end of the island. A small paper bag, plain brown, folded at the top. Lena walked over and opened it. Inside was a novel, a used copy, the cover soft with handling, the spine creased. It was the fourth in the series she had been reading in the window seat when he'd walked into the library in his wet coat. She had told him at dinner, when Theo had asked her what she read, that she had been trying to find a copy of the fourth book for a year, and that it was out of print, and that she refused to read it as an e-book because she was a snob about paper. The fourth book was in her hand. Tucked into the front was a small folded piece of paper. She opened it. His handwriting was smaller than she had expected, tighter, a little cramped. I had Kenji find one. It took him 11 phone calls. Please don't tell him I wrote that. She stood at the kitchen island with a paperback in her hand and a handwritten note on the marble in front of her, and she thought about number 3 on the list, and she thought about how long it had been since anyone had paid attention to her hard enough to know what book she was missing, and she thought about how she was supposed to keep her head down for another 22 months and then disappear. Rosa did not look up from her apples. He's a strange one, Rosa said, very softly, like she was not really talking to anyone. Not bad, just strange. He doesn't know how to do this. Nobody taught him. His mother died when he was 9, you know. His father taught him the wrong things. I've worked for him 6 years. You watch. He's going to do it wrong. He's going to do it wrong, and then he's going to do it more wrong, and then one day he's going to do it right, and it will break him open, and you have to be ready for that. Lena looked at her. Rosa. Are you giving me a warning or a blessing? Rosa finally looked up. Her eyes were sharp and soft at the same time, the way Lena's mother's had been. Both, she said. A little bit of both, mija. She went to see Danny that afternoon. He was in his own apartment, in his own bed, in a hoodie that hung off his shoulders, and he had color in his cheeks for the first time in months. And he made her a terrible cup of tea, and she drank all of it. You look different, he said, for the second time that week. You keep saying that, because you keep looking different. Danny, Lee, don't. I'm not asking. I'm just saying, you look less tired. I'm sleeping more. Danny, I didn't say anything. You said, is not a word. She threw a pillow at him. He caught it. He grinned. For 1 second, his face was the face of a 12-year-old, not a 23-year-old who had come back from somewhere dark. And she felt her throat close, and she looked away fast. Lena. What? I don't know what the deal is with your rich husband. I'm not asking. You said you got a job. I'm going to pretend it's a job. But if he's good to you, Danny, if he's good to you, Lee, you can let yourself have that. Mom would have wanted you to. You've been taking care of me for 4 years. You're allowed to... Stop. Okay. Just stop. Okay, Lee. She sat in the chair by his bed with her hands in her lap, and she did not cry, because she was not going to cry in front of her little brother, but she put her hand on his blanket where his foot was, and she held it there, and he did not say anything else. It was almost midnight when she got home. The penthouse was dark except for the lamp in the living room. He was on the couch again. You're home early, she said from the doorway. I left after the first hour. The client was being a fool. I let the other partner handle it. Okay. Come sit. She walked in. She sat on the other end of the couch. She had, at some point in the last 6 weeks, stopped putting her knees up under her chin. She sat like a person tonight, like a woman on a couch with a man she was allowed to be on a couch with. Did you like the book? He said. I haven't started it. Why? Because I wanted to think about it for a while. Oh, Adrian. Yeah. It was the kindest thing anyone has done for me in a long time. I don't know what to do with it. He was quiet. You don't have to do anything with it. That's not true. You know that's not true. Lena, we have a contract. I know. The contract says, I know what the contract says. I wrote it. So what are we doing? He did not answer right away. The lamp was on. The city glittered. He turned the glass in his hands, the way he did, and she had learned by now that it meant he was thinking about whether to say a true thing. I don't know, he said. Okay. I really don't know, Lena. Okay. I wrote that contract because I was afraid. I wrote it in a way that would protect you from me. That's the truth. I did not want another woman to. I was trying to make sure no one could be hurt. I didn't think past that. I didn't think anyone could actually. I didn't plan for what? For you. She sat very still. Adrian, I'm not going to say anything else. I'm not going to put you in a position where you have to manage me. I wanted to answer your question honestly. You asked what we were doing. I don't know. I'm doing something I did not plan for. I don't know what to do with it. That's my whole answer. She looked at him. He was looking at the coffee table. His jaw was tight. Okay, she said. Okay. I'm going to bed. Okay. Adrian? Yeah. I don't know either. He nodded once. She got up. She walked back down the hall. She stood outside her bedroom door for a long time. She did not go back. She went into her room. She closed the door. She got into bed in her clothes. She lay in the dark. Her phone buzzed at 12:47. It was a text from a number not saved in her phone. I'm about to make a very bad decision. I am trying not to. I am going to bed now. I will see you tomorrow. Oh, she read it twice. She deleted it. She put her phone face down on the nightstand. Then she picked it up and undeleted it because she was 26 years old and she had never in her life been the woman a man sent a text like that to, and she was not going to erase it just because she was scared. She put the phone back down. She did not sleep for a long time. The week after Marcus and Theo's dinner was the first week that the apartment stopped feeling like a hotel. It was small things. She started leaving a book on the arm of the couch in the living room, which Rosa, to her horror, did not tidy away. She started making her own coffee in the mornings instead of letting Rosa make it, and Adrian, on the third day, came into the kitchen at 6:10 and said, "Is there on the stove?" He poured himself a cup. "Thank you." They did not say anything else. He drank his coffee standing at the window. She sat at the island with her novel and her feet tucked up in the chair. He left at 6:30. The kitchen stayed warm. On Wednesday, he came home at 8, which was early, and he knocked on the library door instead of going to his study. She let him in. He sat on the other end of the window seat this time, and he opened his laptop, and she opened her book, and they did not talk for an hour, and it was the most comfortable hour she had spent with another person since her mother died. On Friday, she found him in the kitchen at midnight eating a sandwich over the sink. "Are you?" "I hadn't eaten." "Since when?" "Lunch. Maybe. I forget." "Adrian?" "I know. Sit down. I'll make you something." "Lena, it's late. You don't Sit down, Adrian." He sat. She made him eggs. It was the only thing she could make fast at midnight. She put the plate in front of him. He ate it. She watched him eat it, leaning against the counter with her arms folded. And when he was done, he looked up at her and said, "That was the best thing I've eaten in 3 weeks." "They were eggs." "Yeah." "Adrian." I know, Lena." He took his plate to the sink. He rinsed it. He stood with his back to her, his hands braced on the counter, his head down, and he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, without turning around, "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "How often do you think about what happens in 22 months? She was quiet. "Every day," she said. Yeah. You? Every day. Adrian. I know. We signed up. I know what we signed, Lena. I wrote what we signed. So nothing. I'm asking because I don't know what else to do. I'm asking because I've been sleeping 4 hours a night for 6 weeks. I'm asking because I got on a plane to San Francisco last week, and I looked out the window for 5 hours, and I thought about your face, and I have not thought about another human face on a plane in 8 years, and I'm too old to not say a thing I mean, so I'm saying it. I think about it every day. She did not move. He turned around. His face was not controlled anymore. It was very tired. It was very young. He looked in the low kitchen light like a man who had just put down something that had been heavy for a long time. I'm not asking you for anything, he said. I want you to know that. I am not using the contract. I am not using this apartment. I'm not using the money. I'm not using your brother. I'm not using any of it. The deal is the deal. You are free to leave this room and never speak of this conversation again. And nothing about our agreement changes. Nothing. Do you understand me, Lena? Yes. I needed to say it. Okay. That's all. Okay. She stood against the counter. He stood against the sink. Between them was a narrow strip of marble floor, and a signed contract on the 82nd floor of a building across town, and a woman named Charlotte who had died 8 years ago, and a yellow tulip that was now a dead flattened thing between the pages of a book 2 rooms away. She said, "Come here." He didn't move. "Lena." "Come here, Adrian." He came. He stopped a foot away from her. He did not touch her. His hands stayed at his sides. "I don't know what I'm doing either," she said. Her voice came out lower than she meant. "I don't know what we're doing. I just know that I have been thinking about your face for 3 weeks, and I made you eggs at midnight, and I am very tired of pretending I haven't." He closed his eyes. "I am not going to kiss you tonight," he said very quietly. "Because if I kiss you tonight, it will be because we are in a kitchen and it is late and I have been alone for a very long time. And you deserve better than that for a first time. You deserve—" He stopped. He breathed. "You deserve a man who has thought about it in the daylight. So I am going to go to bed. And tomorrow is Saturday. And I am going to take you out for breakfast, like a person. And we are going to talk about what we are doing in the sun, okay? She looked at him. "Okay," she said. "Okay." "Adrian." "Yeah. Thank you." "For what?" "For not kissing me in a kitchen at midnight." He laughed. It was soft. It was a real laugh. It was the laugh of a man who had not laughed in his own kitchen in a long time. "Good night, Lena." "Good night, Adrian." He walked out of the kitchen. She heard his footsteps go down the hall. She heard his door close. She stood at the counter for a long time. Then she walked back to her room in the dark, and she lay in her enormous bed with her heart going like a rabbit, and she thought, "We are going to have breakfast. We are going to have breakfast. We are going to have breakfast," like a small spell, over and over, until she fell asleep. They did not have breakfast. Kenji called at 6:30 in the morning. Adrian's father had called a meeting of the Voss Harding board for Monday. The agenda had just been circulated. There was one item on it. Item 1, review of the CEO's marital status and the authenticity thereof. Adrian stood in the kitchen in a t-shirt and sweatpants, holding his phone, with a cup of coffee cooling on the counter beside him, and he listened to Kenji read it twice. His face had gone to a place she had not seen before. She came in behind him. She was barefoot. He did not turn around. "He's going to try to prove it's a contract," he said, to no one. "Adrian, he's going to put us under oath, Lena." "Adrian, he is going to take everything." He finally turned. His face was terrible. "I am so sorry," he said. And outside the windows, the rain had stopped, and the city was coming awake in a hard, bright March sun. And the breakfast they had planned the night before was not going to happen. Not that morning, not the way they had meant it to, because a man in a suit on the other side of Manhattan had decided, over his own breakfast, that it was time to take his son's life apart. She didn't say anything for a long time. She stood in the doorway of the kitchen, in her bare feet and her old t-shirt, and she watched a man she had been about to call something other than Mr. Voss for the first time in her life fall apart about a meeting on a Monday. The light coming through the windows was getting harder. Somewhere in the building, a neighbor's dog was barking. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Adrian. I'm so sorry, Lena. Adrian, stop. Look at me. He looked at her. His hand was still around the phone. Kenji was still on the other end of it, silent, the way Kenji was silent when he knew to be silent. Hang up, she said. Lena, hang up, and then tell me what's actually happening. Word by word. Don't leave anything out. Don't protect me. Hang up, Adrian. He said, Kenji, I'll call you in 20 minutes. He hung up. He put the phone face down on the counter. He rubbed both hands over his face, hard enough to leave red marks, and when he took them away, he looked a decade older than he had 10 minutes ago. Sit, she said. Lena, Sit. He sat at the kitchen island. She poured him fresh coffee. She poured herself some. Her hands were not as steady as she wanted them to be, and she didn't care, because his were worse. Tell me what he can do, she said, sitting across from him. Your father, concretely, not the fear of it. What can he actually do? He's calling a special session of the board. He's going to propose a review of our marriage. He's going to argue that if it's a contractual arrangement and not a marriage in good faith, my grandfather's clause isn't satisfied. If the board agrees, the shares transfer. Can he prove it's a contract? He doesn't have to prove it. Adrian, he doesn't have to prove it, Lena. He has to make enough of the board suspect it. This is not a court of law. It's 12 men and 2 women in a boardroom who have known my father longer than they've known me. He has to raise enough doubt that 3 of them flip. That's all. 3 people. How many does he have? He has 2 for sure, probably a third. We were already watching it. If he goes public with this, if he even hints at it in the meeting, we could lose Harriet Okonkwo. And if we lose Harriet, we lose Finn, and then it's done. It's over. What does over mean? It means he takes my seat. It means he takes the company my grandfather built. It means every single thing my grandfather told me to protect. My father strips for parts within 2 fiscal quarters. He's been waiting for this for 11 years, Lena, since my grandfather died. This is what he's wanted. He just needed the opening. And I'm the opening. No. Adrian, you're not the opening. He would have found something. If it hadn't been this, he would have found something. But it's this. Adrian didn't answer. He looked at his coffee. He didn't drink it. Okay, she said. What does he want? Exactly. I don't know yet. Yes, you do. He looked up at her. Yes, you do, Adrian. You've known him your whole life. You know exactly what he wants. Tell me. Adrian's jaw worked. He took a long breath. He'll offer a trade. He always does. He won't kill the board review if I give him something. A board seat for one of his people. A division. A vote. That's how he works. He doesn't want to actually run the whole company. He's not interested in that. He's too lazy. He wants to gut it. He wants to be able to walk into a room and tell people his son bends to him. Okay. Or he stopped. Or what? Or he'll ask for you. For me. For you to leave. Publicly. Quietly. He'll want a statement, a story. He'll want you gone, and he'll want it to read. In the press. Like I chose it. That's his favorite move. He doesn't just want to take something from me. He wants me to hand it to him. He wants to watch me do it. Lena set her coffee down. She did not say anything for a long time. Okay, she said. Lena, I'm thinking, Adrian. Let me think. He let her think. She sat at the kitchen island in her bare feet and her old t-shirt with her fingers wrapped around a cup of coffee she wasn't drinking, and she thought about Danny in his apartment in Murray Hill with his new transplant and his 3 times a day medication schedule. She thought about a foundation that had paid a bill she could not have paid if she had worked 2 jobs for 100 years. She thought about 43 pages she had signed in a conference room on the 82nd floor of a building in another part of the city. She thought about a yellow tulip pressed between the pages of a book 2 rooms away. Adrian, she said. Lena, if I go, does it save you? No. Adrian. No, Lena. I am not answering that question like that because the question is not, answer it. If you go publicly, on his terms, in a way that looks like I chose it, then yes, it probably neutralizes the board review because the board review is about whether our marriage is real. And if the story is that the marriage is over, the review becomes irrelevant. Yes, technically, yes. Okay. Lena, I'm not saying I'm doing it. I'm saying, let me know what the chessboard is. Because I need to know what the chessboard is. We are not putting you on the board. I already am on the board, Adrian. He closed his eyes. She got up. She walked around the island. She stood in front of him. He did not raise his head. She looked down at the top of it, at the small cowlick at his crown that he had probably been trying to flatten his whole adult life, at the tension in the line of his neck, and she felt something in her chest that was not number 3 on the list, had not been number 3 on the list for weeks, and she put her hand very gently on the side of his face. He flinched, just the smallest movement. It was not a flinch of rejection. It was the flinch of a man who is not used to being touched. Adrian. Don't. Adrian, look at me. He looked at her. I'm not going to leave on his terms, she said. I'm not going to let him write this. I'm not going to let him use me like that. He doesn't get to. That's not his scene to direct. Okay, but I need you to do one thing for me. I need you to stop looking like this. I need you to stop looking like the man who signed a 43-page contract to keep anyone from getting hurt. That man is not going to survive Monday. I need the other one. I need the one who told me last night he got on a plane and thought about my face for 5 hours. Can you do that? Yes. Adrian. Yes. She took her hand away. She turned. She walked to the window. She looked out at the city. Her back was to him. Kenji, she said. What? Call Kenji, now. Tell him we need a strategy meeting this morning. All 3 of us. Here. I want to know every board member by name. I want to know what every one of them has wanted from your family in the last 10 years and what they are afraid of. I want to know who likes your father and who is scared of him and who owes him and who owes you and who is waiting to pick a side. I want to know what your grandfather's will actually says, not a summary, the document. I want to read it. Lena. Call Kenji. Adrian? He called Kenji. Kenji was there in 40 minutes in a blazer on a Saturday, with a leather bag under his arm and 2 tablets and a thin expression that Lena eventually came to understand was the closest thing he had to alarm. Mrs. Voss, he said. Lena. Lena. Sit down, Kenji. I'm making more coffee. They sat at the dining table. Papers went out. Binders came out. The will, which Adrian had not in fact read in its entirety since he was 27, was opened on the table between them. Kenji walked them through the board one by one. Lena wrote names on the back of an envelope the way she had written her list the first week. Priscilla Hargrove's sister-in-law. Harriet Okonkwo's real estate. Finn Marsh's second wife. She wrote fast. Her handwriting was messy. She wrote in questions, not answers. Okay, she said, an hour in. Kenji. Lena. The review on Monday. What triggers it? A motion from a board member. It has to be seconded. Who seconds for Richard? Lyle Dorrance. He's been in Mr. Voss Sr.'s pocket since the 90s. Can we get to him? He's not reachable. He's bought. Fine. Who's the third vote? Who's the man your father thinks he has but doesn't quite? Kenji hesitated. He glanced at Adrian. Benjamin Eng, he said slowly. Possibly. He's not loyal to Richard. He respects him, because he respects everyone with that much money, but he's not his man. He's been a floater for 18 months. Adrian has been working on him, quietly. How quietly? Mr. Voss has had 2 private dinners with him in the last year. Lena turned to Adrian. What does Benjamin Ung care about? Adrian rubbed his jaw. He was listening to her. He was actually listening. His daughter is 26. She's trying to start a nonprofit. Her board keeps telling her she's too young. He's told me about her twice in the last year. Not professionally, personally. Both times he was a little drunk. Okay. Okay, what, Lena? Okay, then I'm going to meet Benjamin Eng's daughter. Adrian stared at her. You're going to what? I'm going to meet her before Monday. I'm going to find her nonprofit. I'm going to donate to it personally. Your foundation, Adrian, through a grant. And I'm going to sit in her office and I'm going to listen to her. And then I am going to go to Benjamin Eng's birthday dinner, which is tomorrow night, Kenji. I saw it on the briefing, and I am going to tell him face to face, as a woman who got married in a judge's chambers 6 weeks ago, that my husband is the only man in this city who believes in women under 30 with ideas. and that his foundation gave his daughter a grant this morning. And I am going to do it in a dress your father thinks I can't afford. And Benjamin Eng is going to vote with Adrian on Monday. That's what I'm going to do." Kenji looked at her. He looked at Adrian. Then he looked, for the first time since she had known him, a little impressed. "That is," he said, "a plausible play." "Thank you, Kenji. I will need to move some money. I will need to verify that the nonprofit exists and is not fraudulent." "Verify it." "I will." Adrian, across the table, was looking at her like she was a person he had somehow been living in the same apartment with for 6 weeks and had only just now actually met. "Lena." "Don't." "Lena, this is not your fight." "Adrian Voss," she said, "I signed a piece of paper that said I was your wife for 24 months. I didn't sign a piece of paper that said I was a coward. Your father walked into our foyer and called me the girl. He called me the girl. I have not forgotten that for 6 weeks. I have been waiting for this. Do you understand me? I have been waiting for this." He was staring at her. "Kenji," he said, without taking his eyes off her, "give us a minute." "Of course." Kenji gathered his tablets. He walked out. He was the quietest man on earth, Lena had decided a long time ago. You never heard him leave a room. You only realized afterwards that he was gone. "Lena." "Yes, I am—" He stopped. He didn't finish. "I know," she said more quietly. "I'm not going to say it now. I told you I wouldn't say it in a kitchen at midnight. I'm not going to say it when you just rolled up your sleeves and told my chief of staff to sharpen his knives. I have to do this right. I have to do this in daylight, with no emergencies, with no board meetings, with no—" "Adrian?" "Yeah. It's daylight." He looked at the windows. It was. The sun was up. The kitchen was bright. The clock on the microwave said 11:50. "It's not a board day yet," she said. "No." "So say it." He stood up. He walked around the table. He stopped in front of her. He did not touch her. "I have been in love with you," he said, "since about a week after the gala. I didn't have a word for it for a long time. I thought it was gratitude. I thought it was loneliness. I thought it was the strangeness of having another person in the house. It wasn't. I was lying to myself about it because I thought if I admitted it, I would have to do something about it, and the contract said I wasn't allowed to do anything about it. And I was using the contract to keep myself from doing what I wanted to do, which was tell you what I'm telling you now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it took a man trying to take my company to make me say it out loud. I wanted to say it over breakfast. I wrote the sentence in my head twice last night. It was a better sentence than this. I'm sorry." Lena did not move. Her hands were flat on the back of the chair in front of her. Her heart was a stupid animal in her chest. She could feel her pulse in her throat. "Adrian." "Yes. I'm not going to kiss you either, not right now, because I want to do it right. I want to kiss you in a room where no one is about to take anything from us. I want to kiss you when the only thing at stake is us. Is that okay?" "Yes." "Okay. Okay. Now call Kenji back in." "Okay." He called Kenji back in. Kenji came back in. Kenji pretended, with the absolute professionalism of a man who had been working in Adrian Voss's life for 11 years, that he did not notice that something had changed in the room. He opened his tablet. He kept reading names. They worked until dinner. They ate pizza out of a cardboard box on the kitchen island at 9. Rosa had gone home. Kenji had gone home at 7:30. Adrian was on the phone with Marcus, of all people, because Marcus was somehow related to Benjamin Ing's daughter by marriage, and Marcus had her number. "Lena," Adrian said, covering the phone. "Tomorrow morning, 9:30, at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. She said she'd meet you." "Good." "Okay." "Marcus, thank you." "Yeah, I know, Marcus. I'll tell her." "Okay." He hung up. He set his phone down. He rubbed his eyes. "Marcus says Theo says if we don't have them over for dinner again in 3 weeks, he is personally going to call the press." Lena laughed. She laughed a real laugh for the second time that weekend, and Adrian looked at her and his face did something new, something she had not seen before. And she stopped laughing because it was too much. It was too much in one day, and she had to put her hand flat on the counter to steady herself. "Go to bed," she said. "Lena." "Adrian, go to bed. You have not slept in 2 days, neither have I. If you try to keep going, we are both going to make a bad decision. Go to bed. Okay. I'll see you at 6. Okay? He walked out of the kitchen. She heard his footsteps go down the hall. She heard his door. She stood at the island and ate one more slice of pizza, cold, standing up, and she looked out at the city and she thought, we are going to lose, and we are going to win, and I don't know which one is first. Sunday was a blur. She met Natalie Eng at 9:30 in Brooklyn. Natalie was 26 with a sharp dark bob and tired eyes and a notebook full of ideas. Lena ordered her a second coffee and listened for an hour and a half, and she did not lie once because it turned out that Natalie's nonprofit was genuinely good, and Natalie herself was genuinely good. And at the end of the meeting, Lena took her hand across the sticky table and said, I want my husband's foundation to fund you. I'm not going to tell you it's a conflict of interest. You're a smart woman. But I want you to take the meeting on Tuesday anyway. Will you? Iitati uchitsum. Yes. Okay. Why? Because you're the right person and your dad needs to see it. That's all. Natalie looked at her for a long time. Then she nodded, once, slowly, like a person who had just decided to trust someone. Lena went home. Kenji met her in the foyer. The Ung money was moving. The paperwork would be clean by Monday noon. There was a dress laid out in her closet. Her appointment with the stylist was at 3. She went to the dinner at 6. Adrian picked her up at the apartment in the car, and he looked at her in the back seat for a long second, and he said, Jesus, Lena. Don't Jesus me. Tell me the plan again. You don't need me to tell you the plan again. Tell me anyway. He told her the plan. She listened. She straightened his tie at a red light on Lexington. She did not kiss him. She did not touch his face. She touched the knot of his tie with 2 fingers, and he closed his eyes for a second, and then the light changed. Benjamin? Ung was a heavy-set man in his 60s with kind eyes and a careful laugh. His wife was small and warm. The dinner was in a private room at a restaurant Lena had never heard of. There were 8 people at the table. Lena sat next to Benjamin by design. She did what she had said she would do. She mentioned Natalie, but only once, and only at the coffee course, and only because Benjamin mentioned her first. My daughter had coffee with a stranger this morning, he said, shaking his head into his espresso. She came home glowing. Won't tell me who. Your daughter is a remarkable young woman, Mr. Ung. He looked up. Is she now? I had coffee with her this morning. He set his espresso down. The room had not quieted. The conversation went on around them. But between Benjamin Eng and Lena Carter at the end of the table, a small private negotiation happened in about 90 seconds. And Lena did all of it with her eyes and her hands and a sentence about Natalie's third-quarter milestones. At the end, Benjamin Eng said very softly, You're a piece of work, Mrs. Voss. I'm told. Your husband is lucky. I know. He laughed. It was a surprised laugh. I know he's lucky too, he said. I'll tell you what, young lady. I'll see you both tomorrow. At the office. He paused. And I hope, for his sake, you know what you're doing. So do I. They drove home at 11. In the car, Adrian did not speak for a long time. He just sat with his hand on the seat beside hers, not touching her, and he looked out the window at the city. Lena. Yeah. You just saved the company. I don't know that yet. I know it. Adrian. Yeah. I'm not Charlotte. I know. I'm saying it out loud. I'm not Charlotte. I'm not a promise you made to a dying woman. I'm not a penance. I'm not a ring you wear because someone asked you to. If we do this, if I stay after Monday, if we choose this, it's because I am me, and you are you, and that's the whole reason. I don't want to be a replacement. You are not a replacement. I had to say it. I know you did. He put his hand, finally, over hers, on the seat. Very lightly. She turned her hand over, palm up. He didn't lace their fingers. He just held her hand. They rode the rest of the way home like that. Monday morning came, gray and cold, and the boardroom on the 49th floor of Voss Harding Industries was full by 8:45. Lena was not in the boardroom. Lena was in Adrian's office across the hall with Kenji and a cup of coffee she did not drink, and she was pretending that her hands were not cold. At 9, the meeting started. At 9:12, according to Kenji's reports from his source inside the room, Richard Voss made his motion. At 9:14, Lyle Dorrance seconded it. At 9:17, Adrian spoke for the first time. He spoke for 4 minutes. He did not defend the marriage. He did not refer to it at all. He said, "Instead, according to the notes, I am not going to dignify this motion with a conversation about my wife. This company is not a soap opera. It is an 80-year-old institution built by my grandfather. I am going to ask each of you one question, and I want you to think about it before you answer. Are you comfortable using a family law matter to settle a governance question? Because if you are, we are not the board. My grandfather thought we were. Vote your conscience. I am not going to argue with you about my marriage in this room." And then he sat down. Richard Voss, the source said, looked, for the first time in years, angry. The vote was called at 9:31. Benjamin Ung voted against the motion. Harriet Okonkwo, who had been rumored to flip, voted against the motion. Finn Marsh, who had been nervous all week, looked at Harriet and voted against the motion. The motion failed 8-6. At 9:34, Adrian walked out of the boardroom. At 9:36, he walked into his office and he looked at Lena in the chair by the window and he said, "It's done. It's done, Lena." She stood up. He walked across the office. And this time, in daylight, in a room where nothing else was at stake, in an office on the 49th floor of a building in Midtown Manhattan, Adrian Voss kissed his wife for the first time since their wedding 6 weeks ago. It was not the kiss at the judge's chambers. It was not a check mark. It was not a photograph. It was a man who had not let himself feel anything for 8 years, putting his hand very gently on the side of Lena Carter's face and pressing his mouth against hers, and breathing her in like she was the first real thing he had touched in a decade. She kissed him back. She kissed him back for a long time. Kenji, behind the door, did not come in. When they finally stopped, she had her hand pressed flat against his chest, over his heart, and his was shaking, and hers was too, and they both laughed a little, a broken, stupid laugh, and he pressed his forehead against hers and closed his eyes. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay. Okay, Lena. We still have work to do. I know. Your father isn't done. I know. He's going to come at us again. I know. But we won today. Yes. Okay? Okay." She stepped back. She smoothed down the front of her dress. She fixed her hair in the reflection of the window. She put her public face back on. She walked to the door. "Lena." "Yeah." "Thank you." "Don't thank me." "Lena." "Yeah." "Come home early tonight." She turned. She looked at him. She was a girl from Queens standing in an office on the 49th floor, and she was also, for the first time in her life, in love. And she was also, for the first time in her life, in real trouble about it. "Okay," she said. She walked out. And that night she did come home early, and so did he. And Rosa had lit candles in the kitchen for reasons Rosa did not explain. And they ate at the kitchen island, not at the dining table. And they talked about everything except the contract. And afterward they sat on the couch in the lamplight. And she put her head on his shoulder for the first time. And he put his arm around her, and they did not talk for almost an hour. And it was the most real hour of either of their lives. She did not know yet, as she closed her eyes on his shoulder that night, that Richard Voss had spent the afternoon in a lawyer's office on the 60th floor of a different building, and that he had pulled from a locked drawer a folder with her name on it, and that he had been preparing for 6 weeks a second move. She did not know yet that Richard Voss had found out, somehow, that Daniel Carter's surgery was not the only thing the Voss Foundation was paying for, and that the Foundation's records could be made to look, in the hands of a vicious enough man, like something else entirely. She did not know that a reporter at a mid-sized business magazine was going to receive a very interesting envelope in the morning. For now she was on a couch, in a warm apartment, with her head on the shoulder of a man who had finally let her in. The lamp was on. Outside the city glittered, indifferent and beautiful. Inside, for one quiet hour, they were just two people, and it was enough. The story broke on Wednesday morning. Lena was in the kitchen when Kenji came in without knocking, which had never happened before, and that alone told her what kind of day was about to start. He was holding his tablet against his chest like a shield. His tie was crooked. Kenji's tie was never crooked. "Mrs. Voss?" "Kenji." "Is Mr. Voss up?" "He's in the shower." "I need him now. I need him in 10 minutes. Could you—" "Kenji." "What?" Kenji set the tablet on the island. He turned it so she could see. It was a business magazine's website, one she had heard of and never read. The headline was in dark type. Voss Foundation paid CEO's wife's hospital bills before marriage. Documents raise questions about the authenticity of one of Manhattan's most sudden unions. Lena read it once. She read it again. Kenji? I know. Kenji, this is actually true. I know it is. The foundation did pay Danny's bills. I know, Mrs. Voss. So what do we... That's why I need Mr. Voss. She heard the shower shut off down the hall. She picked up the tablet. She walked down the hall. She did not knock because she had lost the habit of knocking sometime in the last week, and she was not going to rediscover it for this. She pushed open the bedroom door. Adrian was coming out of the bathroom in a towel, his hair wet, and he took one look at her face and he said, "What?" She held up the tablet. He read it. She watched the color leave his face in real time, the way she had seen the color leave Danny's face when the doctors first said the word aggressive. Lena. Yeah. He set us up. Yeah. The foundation is not a criminal organization. We did not do anything wrong. The grants to your brother's hospital predate the contract by... He was talking to himself now. He was talking fast. By 9 days. 9. We can show the timeline. We can show the application. You applied before we ever spoke. It's clean. It's clean. But by the time we prove it's clean, the damage is done. Yeah. She set the tablet on the dresser. She sat down on the edge of his bed. It occurred to her, in a very small back corner of her brain, that this was the first time she had sat on his bed, and that it was a strange day to have that particular thought. Adrian. Yeah. What does this do, concretely, now, today? He sat down next to her. He was still in a towel. It did not occur to either of them to be self-conscious about it. He was thinking, it doesn't undo the board vote. That's done. But it reopens the conversation. It puts pressure on the independent directors. It spooks our investors. More importantly, it spooks the Anderson deal. We're closing on Anderson in 11 days, $2 billion. If Anderson gets cold feet, if his lawyers think we're a reputation risk, he pulls out. The company loses $2 billion and 9 months of work. And then my father walks back into that boardroom with a very different set of numbers. Okay. And the news cycle, my God, the news cycle. Adrian. Yeah. He gave this story to someone. Yes. He had this ready. He's had this ready for weeks. Yes. And he released it now, 2 days after we beat him. Yes. So he was never going to stop. No. She took a breath. Okay, she said. Lena. I'm thinking. Lena, you don't have to... I'm thinking, Adrian. He went quiet. She sat on the edge of his bed in a t-shirt and sweatpants, and she made herself look at the whole thing, not just the part she wanted to look at, not just the part where 2 days ago a man had kissed her in an office and she had let him, the whole board of it, Danny, the foundation, the company. Adrian's father in a lawyer's office on the 60th floor of a building in Midtown, patient as a snake. $2 billion. A reporter who had printed a thing that was technically true and morally a knife. Adrian. Yeah. He's not going to stop. No. He'll do this again in 2 months, in 6 months, in a year. Every time we win something, he'll leak something else. He's going to make this the whole marriage. Yes. So we have to end him. End him how, Lena? She turned and looked at him. Not kill him, Adrian. Jesus, what do you think I am? I don't know what you are anymore, honestly. You scare me a little. Good. Lena, we have to take his weapon away. He's going to keep using me. He's going to keep using Danny. He's going to keep using the contract. The only way to stop him is to take all 3 of those things off the table, at once, publicly. Meaning we tell the truth. Adrian was silent for a long time. Lena, he said very carefully, if we confirm that the marriage started as a contract, it didn't start as a contract. It did. No. She turned fully toward him. No, Adrian, listen to me. It did not start as a contract. It started as a proposal. It was a contract for a little while in between.
And then it stopped being a contract sometime between the gala and the yellow tulip and the night I made you eggs in the kitchen. It's not a contract now. It has not been a contract for weeks. And if we go out there and say, yes, this started as a business arrangement, and then in spite of ourselves,
It turned into something else, and that something else is real. And no one is more surprised than we are. If we say that, Adrian, clearly, without shame, then your father has nothing left. He can't call it a fake marriage. He can't call Danny's surgery a bribe. He can't threaten to leak anything because there's nothing left to leak. We leak it ourselves. We own it. We stop being a scandal the second we stop being a secret. Adrian stared at her. That is the most insane thing you have said to me. I know. Kenji will hate it. Kenji will hate it, and Kenji will do it because it's right. The lawyers will be mad for 48 hours, and then they'll write us a statement. Adrian, yeah. We have a choice. We can spend the next 20 months hiding, or we can spend the next 40 years not hiding. I know which one I want. I need to know which one you want. He looked at her. He did not answer for a long time. Lena. Yeah. I have been hiding my whole life. I know. I don't know how to not. I know. That's why I'm asking. He closed his eyes. He took a long breath. He opened his eyes. Okay, he said. Okay, Lena. Yes. Okay, let's end him. Kenji, when they walked back into the kitchen in actual clothes 12 minutes later, listened to the plan with a face like a man swallowing glass. Absolutely not, he said. Kenji. Absolutely not, Mr. Voss. No, this is the worst possible strategic response I have ever heard from you. It breaks every single Kenji. It violates the NDA. It exposes Mrs. Voss personally. It creates Kenji, a news cycle that we cannot control. Kenji. Adrian was standing very still at the kitchen island with his hands flat on the marble. He was looking at Kenji. Kenji had known Adrian Voss for 11 years, and Adrian had never, in those 11 years, looked at him like that. Kenji, I have been taking your advice for a decade. I am not taking it today. We are doing this. I need you to write the statement, or I need you to help me find someone who will, but we are doing this. Kenji stared at him. Then Kenji looked at Lena. Then Kenji did a thing Lena had not seen him do once in 6 weeks. He took off his glasses. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. He let his shoulders slump just a little. All right, he said, almost to himself. All right, I'm going to be very angry for an hour, and then I'm going to help you. Thank you, Kenji. I am going to yell at you in my head for at least a year about this. I accept that. I want a raise. Done. I want 2 raises. One now, one when it works. Done. Fine, Kenji said. He put his glasses back on. Fine. I'm calling Priya. We're going to need the communications team here in an hour. Mr. Voss? Yes. You're going to be on camera for this. Both of you. Not a press release, a sit down. A single reporter, someone we can manage, someone serious. If we are doing this, we are doing it in a face that the country can look at. We are not hiding behind paper. Agreed. Mrs. Voss. Lena. Lena, I'm going to be honest with you. Once you say this on camera, your privacy is over. It will not come back. You will be a tabloid fixture for years. Your brother will be stopped on the street. Your face will be in grocery store checkout lines for the rest of your 30s. Do you understand what you are signing up for? She thought about it. Yes, she said. Really think about it, Lena. Kenji, I waited tables in Queens. I've been stopped on the street my whole life, usually by drunk people. I think I can handle a grocery store. For the first time in 6 weeks, Kenji actually laughed. It was a small laugh, and short, but it was a laugh. All right, he said. All right, let's ruin his day. They did the sit-down on Friday. The reporter was a woman in her 50s named Carol Xie, who had written about business and family power for 30 years, and who had, by some miracle of Kenji's old relationships, agreed to an exclusive with 24 hours' notice. She came to the apartment in a sensible blazer and low-heeled shoes, and she drank the coffee Rosa made her, and she did not smile much, and Lena liked her immediately. There were 2 cameras. There was a lighting person. There was Kenji in the corner, trying to look calm. There was Adrian in a gray suit and Lena in a simple black dress, and they sat next to each other on the same couch they had sat on at midnight in the lamplight for weeks. And Carol Shea turned on the recorders and said, "Let's start with the hardest question. Did you marry each other for love?" "No," Adrian said, "not at first." The room went very still. Carol's eyebrows did not move. She had been doing this too long. "Walk me through it." Adrian walked her through it. He did not lie. He did not soften. He said his grandfather's will required him to marry. He said he had built a life after his fiancée's death that did not include another person, and he had not intended for that to change. He said he had approached Lena because her brother was sick, and because she was a stranger, and because he had believed incorrectly that a stranger could be kept at a distance. He said he had written a contract he was not proud of. He said that contract had been signed, in good faith on both sides, for reasons that were financial on his end and medical on hers. He said his grandfather would have hated it. Lena watched him while he talked. She had never seen him like this. He was not performing. He was not in CEO mode. He was a man sitting on a couch in his own living room admitting to a stranger that he had been wrong. Then Carol turned to her. "Mrs. Voss." "Lena, please." "Lena, why did you sign it?" "My brother was going to die." That's a simple answer. It was a simple reason. And now? Now it's not a simple reason. No. "Are you in love with him?" Lena looked at Adrian. He was looking at her. He had not known what she was going to say. Neither had she, until that moment. "Yes," she said. Carol Shea wrote something in her notebook. "Is he in love with you?" "I'll let him answer that." "Yes," Adrian said. His voice was very quiet. "I am." Carol let the silence sit for a long moment. Then she said, "Mr. Voss, your father leaked the foundation documents to a business magazine on Wednesday morning." "I believe he did. I can't prove it, but yes." "What do you want to say to him?" Adrian was quiet for a long time. "I want to say," he said finally, "that he's been waiting 11 years to take this company away from me, and he thinks the only way he can do it is by weaponizing the people I love. I want to say that it's not going to work, not because I'm stronger than him, but because I stopped being afraid of him about 3 days ago, and I don't think he knows how to fight a son who isn't afraid of him. I want to say, Dad, if you're watching this, that I spent 34 years trying to be the man my grandfather wanted me to be so I wouldn't become you. And I almost did become you. I almost did. I built a life that looked like yours. Cold, transactional, nobody allowed inside. And a woman I did not choose sat down on my couch at 2 a.m. 6 weeks ago and told me that cruelty was not the same as honesty, and I have been thinking about that sentence every day since. That's what saved me from you. Not the board, not the shares. A girl from Queens on my couch at 2 a.m. You can have the company if you can take it. You can't take her. Carol Shea did not say anything for a long moment. Then she said very softly, "Okay, I think we have it." The piece ran Sunday night. Kenji called at 11:10. Lena and Adrian were on the couch, the television off, the lamp on, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her. They had not watched. They were going to read it in the morning. "It's online," Kenji said. "I'll send you the link. Don't read the comments. Not tonight. Tomorrow." "How is it, Kenji?" "It's extraordinary, actually." "Is that good?" "That's very good." "Okay." "Mr. Voss." "Yeah." "Your father is going to make a statement in the morning. He has to. The press is at his house. It won't be a good statement. He will try to claim he was protecting the company. He will try to claim he was blindsided. He will lie. Are you prepared?" "Yes." "Good. Go to sleep. Both of you." "Thanks, Kenji." "2 raises, Mr. Voss." "I remember." Kenji hung up. Adrian turned the phone face down on the coffee table. He did not pick up the remote. He looked at Lena. "Hi," he said. "Hi. We did a thing. We did a thing. Are you scared?" "Yes." "Me too." "Adrian?" "Yeah." "Come to bed." He looked at her. "Yeah? Yeah." "Okay." They walked down the hall together, and he turned off the lamp on his way past it, and they went to his bedroom, and she closed the door behind them. They did not talk for a long time. They did not have to. When she fell asleep, it was with her ear against his chest, listening to his heart, which was the strongest, stupidest, most unguarded thing she had heard in months. Richard Voss's statement came at 9 the next morning. It was a disaster. He tried to claim he had been protecting the company. He tried to claim he had not leaked the documents. He tried, by the third paragraph, to suggest that Lena was an opportunist. That sentence was the one that ended him. It was picked up within an hour. It was dissected within 2. By noon, 3 of the board members who had voted with Richard on Monday had released a joint statement distancing themselves from his comments. By 3, Harriet Okonkwo had called Adrian personally and told him that if he wanted to put his father's removal on the next agenda, she would second it. By Friday, the Anderson deal had closed. By Saturday, Richard Voss had resigned from the board. By Sunday, 1 week after the sit-down aired, the stock was up 11%, and a columnist at the same magazine that had leaked the foundation story had published a follow-up piece titled, "The Voss Marriage is the Most Honest Thing in Corporate America Right Now." Kenji sent it to Lena with a single message. "2 raises, Mrs. Voss. You owe me 2 raises as well." She laughed until she cried, standing in the kitchen in a t-shirt with flour on her hands, because Rosa had been teaching her to make empanadas, and she had flour everywhere, and life had gotten so strange and so big and so small all at once. Danny called her that afternoon. "Lee." "Hi, Danny. I'm at the grocery store." "Okay." "A woman in line behind me just asked me if I was the brother." "Danny." "She was very nice." "Danny." "She told me you were brave." "Oh." "Lee." "Yeah. Are you happy?" She sat down on a stool at the kitchen island. Rosa was in the other room, humming, not listening, but listening. The afternoon sun was coming through the windows. She could see the tulip book on the shelf from where she was sitting. "Yeah, Danny," she said. "I think I'm happy." "Okay?" "Are you okay?" "I'm okay, Lee. I love you." "I love you too. I'll see you on Tuesday." "Tuesday." She hung up. She sat at the island. Rosa came into the kitchen humming and took one look at her face and said, "Cry if you need to, mija. I'll leave." "I'm not crying." "Rosa." "Yes. Thank you." "For what?" "For the first morning. The eggs, just the first morning." Rosa looked at her for a long time. Her eyes did the soft thing. "You're welcome," she said. They tore up the contract in April. It was not a ceremony. It was a Thursday evening. Adrian came home with the 43 pages in a manila envelope. He put it on the dining table. They had dinner. Afterwards, he took out the papers. He looked at her. "This thing." "Yeah." "I don't want it in the house." "No." "Do we burn it or shred it?" "Shred it. Burning is dramatic." "You are not a dramatic person." "I am deeply not a dramatic person." He laughed. He got the shredder from his study. They stood in the kitchen together, and he fed the pages in, one at a time, slowly, and she stood next to him and watched. When it got to the last page, the signature page, with her name and his name in black ink, he paused. "Lena." "Yeah." "Will you marry me?" "Adrian, we're already married." "I know. I'm asking anyway." "I didn't ask the first time. I told you it was a transaction. I told you it was a signature. I'm asking now. I'm asking you, Lena Carter, if you would like to be married to me, on purpose, for actual reasons, for as long as we both can stand each other. I don't have a ring. I'm going to get a ring. But I wanted to do it before the last page went in, because otherwise it would just be, a shredder. That's not a moment. She was laughing and crying at the same time, which she had never been able to do before in her life. "Yes," she said. "Yes? Yes, you idiot." "Okay." "Shred the page, Adrian." He shredded the page. They stood in the kitchen in the evening light, and he put his arms around her and she put her face against his shoulder, and neither of them said anything for a while, because some things do not need to be said. Rosa came in 20 minutes later, saw them, said, "I did not see anything," and walked back out, and they laughed, and Adrian pressed his mouth to her forehead, and the shredder was still on, humming softly in the quiet, chewing the last of a document that did not describe them anymore. A year after the sit-down, On a gray Tuesday in February, Lena sat in a folding chair in a small community room in Queens that smelled like coffee and radiator heat, and she watched her brother walk across a tiny stage in a graduation cap, and she clapped with her hands over her head, and Adrian, sitting next to her in a coat that was too expensive for the room and a scarf that he kept pulling off and putting back on because he could never decide if he was warm or cold, clapped with her. Danny was 24 now. Danny had finished the community college certificate program he had started in the fall. He wanted to be a physical therapist. He said the nurses had saved him, and he wanted to be that for someone else. When he came off the stage, he hugged Lena so hard she had to remind him he had ribs, and then he hugged Adrian, and Adrian, who had never been hugged by a younger brother in his life, stood very still for 1 second, and then hugged him back. "Thanks, man," Danny said quietly into Adrian's shoulder. "Don't. I'm saying it once." "Okay. Okay." That was the whole conversation. They never had another one about it. They had dinner at a diner on 34th Street afterward, because Lena insisted, and Danny ordered a cheeseburger, and Adrian ordered the same cheeseburger because he did not know what else to order in a diner, and he was afraid of the menu, and Lena laughed at him, and he laughed at himself, and the waitress called him honey, and he looked so startled that Lena had to put her head down on the table. They walked home through the cold. Adrian's driver was waiting 3 blocks away because Lena had asked. She wanted to walk. The city was loud. The wind was mean. Adrian put his arm around her, and she tucked into his coat, and they walked up Lexington slowly. And at a red light on 48th, he said, without planning to, "I want a kid." She looked up at him. "Okay," she said. "Not tomorrow. Just, I want one. Eventually. With you." "Okay, Adrian. Is that okay to say?" "Yeah, it's okay to say." "Okay." The light changed. They kept walking. They had a daughter 2 years later. They named her Ruth after Lena's mother. She was born in a hospital in the East 60s, and the first thing Adrian did when they put her in his arms was cry, which he had told Lena, in the 8th month, that he absolutely would not do, because he was a man who had not cried since he was 9 years old, and Lena had said, "Sure, honey," and he had said, "I mean it, Lena," and she had said, "Sure, honey." He cried for 20 minutes. She let him. Charlotte's photograph was never hidden again. It lived on a shelf in the living room with the other photographs, between a picture of Rosa's grandchildren and a picture of Danny at graduation. Ruth grew up asking about it. Adrian told her the truth in age-appropriate pieces over many years. Charlotte was someone he had loved. She had died. She had been a good person, and he had been young, and losing her had changed him. He had carried her for a long time. He still carried her. He would always carry her. But he had built his family with Ruth's mother, and he had chosen this family, and the choosing was the whole thing. "So she's like a ghost," Ruth said once, at 9. "Not a ghost exactly, more like a person in a photograph that I loved." "And Mom knows?" "Mom knows." "And Mom isn't jealous?" "Mom is not jealous. I asked her to marry me in a kitchen. I asked her twice. It was in a kitchen both times. You can't be jealous of someone if you got asked in a kitchen." "That doesn't make any sense, Dad." "It makes sense to me." "You're weird." "Yes." Lena, at the counter, not looking up from the vegetables she was chopping, said, "He's weird, but he's mine." Richard Voss died 6 years after the sit-down. It was a heart attack, and it was fast, and he was alone. Adrian flew to Connecticut the morning he heard, and he stood in a hospital hallway for an hour before he made himself walk into the room, and he looked at his father's face, and he did not know what he felt. He did not feel relieved, exactly. He did not feel sad. He felt, mostly, a kind of old tiredness, the way you feel when a door you have been pushing against your whole life stops being there and you stagger forward into the empty space. He called Lena from the hallway afterwards. "He's gone." "Oh, honey, I don't know how I feel." "That's okay. You don't have to know yet." Lena, "Yeah. Thank you." "For what?" "For being the one I call." "Always, Adrian." "Okay. Come home when you can." "Okay." He came home that night. Ruth was 4. She was asleep. He stood in her doorway for a long time before he came to bed. Lena watched him from the doorway of their room. He did not say anything. She did not make him. He came to bed. She held him. He did not cry. He just held on to her like a man gripping a rail in a storm, and she let him. In the morning, he made coffee and brought her a cup. He stood at the window. The city was doing its morning thing, the sun just coming up over the river, the cabs already honking on Lexington. "I think I'm okay," he said. "Yeah? Not today, but eventually, I think I'm going to be okay." "Yeah, I think so too." "Lena." "Yeah. Thank you for not letting me be him." She got up off the couch. She walked across the living room. She put her arms around him from behind, and she pressed her face between his shoulder blades, and she held him for a long time. "That wasn't me," she said into his back. "That was you. I just told you cruelty wasn't honesty. You decided the rest." "Okay." "Adrian." "Yeah. I love you. I love you too." They stood at the window like that for a while, and then Ruth came padding in her pajamas asking for cereal. And life did what life does, which is keep going. And they made cereal, and the morning happened, and the day happened, and the weeks happened, and the years happened. People ask Lena Carter sometimes. In interviews, she mostly declines and occasionally accepts what she learned from all of it. She has gotten better at answering. She used to stumble on the question. Now she has a version she gives, and it's honest, and it's short, and it's the thing she actually believes. She says the world teaches women, and men too, that being strong means being closed, that if you don't need anyone, no one can hurt you. She says she believed that for a long time. She says her husband believed it longer. She says that every good thing in her life came from a moment when one of them decided not to believe it anymore. She says that real strength, the kind that lasts, is not the ability to survive alone. It is the willingness to be seen, to let another person in close enough to do damage and trust them not to stop performing a self that is easier to love and offer the real one, knowing it might be refused. She says her husband almost didn't let her in. She says she almost didn't let him either. She says they got lucky, and they got stubborn, and they sat on opposite ends of a couch at 2 a.m, enough times that eventually there was no opposite ends anymore. There was just the couch. She says you don't need a contract. She says you don't need a penthouse. She says you don't need a sit-down interview with a 57-year-old business reporter to tell the truth about your life, although she doesn't recommend against it if you have the chance. She says you just need to stop hiding. She says it's the hardest thing any of us ever does, and it's the only thing worth doing, and most people don't, and the people who do are the ones who get to be happy. She says her name is Lena Voss now, not because she had to change it, but because she wanted to, and there's a difference. She says the penthouse is warm now. She says there are fingerprints on the windows, and crayons under the couch, and a dog named Biscuit that Adrian said absolutely not to, and that is now, 4 years in, the love of his life. She says Rosa retired and then came back because she missed Ruth, and they pay her too much, and she complains about it. She says Kenji runs a department now and has a husband of his own, and still corrects Adrian's ties in the foyer before meetings. She says Danny is a physical therapist in Brooklyn, and his waiting room has a fish tank that he's very proud of. She says Marcus and Theo come for dinner twice a month, and Theo still calls her the roomer. She says the contract is gone. She says the marriage is not. She says the second one is what's real. And the first one was just the door you had to walk through to get to the second one, and she will not tell anyone that their door has to be a contract with a billionaire, because that would be a strange piece of advice to give. But she will tell them that whatever door they are standing in front of, they should walk through it with their eyes open. And then, on the other side, they should try very hard, every day, to stop hiding. That is the whole thing. That is what she has to say. The rest is just weather. On a quiet evening in late October with the city going gold outside the windows, Lena Voss sat on a couch in a warm apartment with her husband on one end, and her daughter between them and a dog asleep across all three of their feet. And she thought about a girl in a hospital bathroom 8 years ago, on the floor, crying so hard her ribs hurt, and she wished she could reach back through time and sit down next to that girl and say, "You are going to be okay. You are going to be more than okay. The man you are about to sign a contract with is going to learn how to love you, and you are going to learn how to let him. And it is going to be the hardest thing you ever do and the best thing you ever do, and it is worth every minute of what you are crying about right now." She couldn't reach back through time. She didn't need to. She just sat on the couch, in the gold light, with her family. And she was seen, and she saw them. And the door she had walked through 8 years ago in a judge's chambers closed, finally, gently, behind her, and she did not look back at it again. Outside, the city glittered on. Inside, they were home. And that, in the end, was the whole story.